approved there to basically do a retrospective study on catheter positioning. You can ask me a little bit more about the design of that in the Q&A if you like. And then a second hospital, we're planning to do a very similar study, but more prospective facing, where they have not started using life bubbles yet. But just this last week, we got value committee approval from that institution to start using the device clinically and submit an IRB with a neonatologist and a nurse there to do the study. Thanks so much.
Great job. All right, judges, questions? All right.
Hi, Chris Kiddavis from Marcomedic again.
Yeah.
Having worked on a lot of catheters and seen concerns about kinking and tight radii and things like that,
Yeah.
watching your video, it's an awful tight radii. I'd like you to talk about that a little bit.
Sure, yeah. We identified it as a potential issue early on. We were pretty rigorous about this, actually, without getting too much of the nuts and bolts of it. But we took the worst case scenario, which is the smaller lumen of a 3.5 French double lumen catheter, which is 1.8 French, and wanted to ensure that we weren't impeding fluid flow. There's a standard that sort of explains how to calculate this just using gravity. And actually, when secured with LiPo, we're getting fluid flow with just like 50 mils of pressure, no infusion pump, and it's still dripping through. So that was kind of our worst case scenario test. We've tested a variety of catheters as well. So, and also I can tell you clinically it has not come up as an issue whatsoever. But yeah, the truth is these catheters are pretty well designed, yeah. Yes?
Does it allow you to secure both catheters at the same time? Or if one needs to be adjusted or replaced,
Yeah.
can you do it without interfering with the other one?
Yes, can I go back here? Oh, awesome, great. Yeah, so there are two securement knobs to secure two catheters. I'm going to go on to the last slide here. And they're secured independently, and the securement itself is mechanical, actually. So yes, you secure them independently. You can secure them both. They're both inserted. You can secure them both. But the great thing is if you need to remove one of them, you can just remove one without perturbing the second catheter. Because usually if they're secured on a tape bridge, you have to kind of undo the tape, and you risk partially dislodging the other catheter. But yeah, you can just remove one without messing with the second catheter.
The device can stay in place.
Yes, that's right. The device stays in place. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was like a key requirement for nurses early on. We identified that and sort of designed around that. Exactly. Yeah.
So this is the perfect graphic. So is
Okay.
the attachment method part of your kit, or is that something you'd expect them to have?
Yeah, great question. So we started off just wanting hospitals to just use their adhesives and ones that we had tested. So in the early, I'd say for the first like 25 devices or so, they started just cutting up their own adhesives, using their own. But we got a lot of feedback that it was still kind of a pain, not really saving much time. So now, as of maybe 2.5, 3 months ago, we started kitting it, and now all the pre-cut adhesive strips are indeed in it as well. So it's kind of a complete packaging, and we have seen like a lot greater uptick in usage since then, as you can imagine.
So a comment and a question.
Sure.
The comment is, it's nice, sorry, it's nice to see somebody addressing something that isn't high-tech
Thank you.
in the usual way. There's a lot of work that goes on in supporting neonates that doesn't require high-tech. So I think, number one, thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
and the question is, what are you going to be collecting? You're doing a study. What are
Yeah.
you collecting?
Great.
I mean, you've talked about movement, you've talked about, what are you actually going to collect? And is it more survey? Is there data collection? What are you going to do with that 25K?
Yeah, good question. I know I kind of glossed over that. So the goal is to assess the rate of catheter migration over time using radiographs. So we're not actually suggesting that we take more x-rays of the babies, but these babies get x-rays at various points as part of their normal clinical care. So the goal, I'll just talk about the retrospective study first. The goal is to go back, identify the babies that had life bubble, and just look at their x-rays that were taken and see where the position of the catheter is over time, and compare that to babies that did not have life bubble. Yeah, that's kind of the short answer. We thought about doing it just based on external recordings of the position of the catheter, which nurses frequently do, but as you're kind of smiling, that data is very unreliable, I would say, at best. So I think that is the gold standard is obviously like the radiographic position, and then probably controlling and adjusting statistically based on the length of time that it was in and the duration between x-rays, things like that.
How often do they have to replace the device, or in your experience, how much it does skin abrasion and kind of reactions to that?
Yeah, so it stays for the life of the catheter. So
even if it is like days?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it just the device stays for the length of the catheter. And your second question was skin abrasion. Yeah, it's a concern that a lot of nurses and physicians have brought up, but I'll tell you practically it has not come up at all. I mean, that interface, the bottom adhesive, is just a hydrocolloid adhesive, which has kind of been tested, I would say, by the industry as pretty safe for neonatal skin. Yeah.
And what is the material?
It's silicone.
Silicone.
Yeah, 100% silicone.
I just wanted to know the feedback from the nurses when they used it on the tiniest, the 400 grammars and the 500 grammars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So right now, the device is sort of intended to capture the larger subset of babies. I know it's hard to kind of imagine this on a neonate. So the smallest baby it's gone on is about 650 grams and hasn't go below that. I'd say the majority are around a kilogram up to term. Average is probably a little above a kilogram or so. Yeah, I mean, your sort of, I think, initial intuition is probably correct. Some of the feedback from the nurses on the smallest of babies is that the device is a little bit big for them. We definitely imagine, we're actually right now also working on developing a smaller version for the smaller subset of babies. So we also may envision that this comes in a large and small sizes, and this representing the larger one.
And then how many times have they needed to, the device isn't on quite right, and I just need to replace it and put another one on? How many times does that occur?
Pretty infrequent, actually, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a new device, not especially difficult to use. We have like a nice, obviously there's like a big IFU, but we also have sort of like kind of an abridged version just for some of the basic instructions in the video that they can use. So they use it effectively and correctly the first time through most of the time. So yeah, not much need to replace.
Actually, I'm going to ask Jim's question for him. Pricing.
Yeah, so we haven't sold any to hospitals yet. These 2 hospitals now are using them as a no-cost trial. We've communicated a price point around $100, but yeah, we're sort of working through that, I suppose, kind of what it might look like at scale. Yeah, but our COGS are significantly lower than that.
All right, great, good to hear it.
Yeah.
All right, nice job, thank you. So to stay on schedule, we're not going to take a 10-minute break as was indicated in the program, but I'm just going to let the judges stand up and stretch for a second if you guys want. Anyone else wants to stand up and stretch? We're over the hump. We have 5 more to go. But if you want to stretch for 1 moment, not 10 minutes, stretch and get another cup of coffee, and then come on back, and we're going to keep going. 2-minute break. Just enough time for coffee.
Yeah. So